Hello there friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. The most exciting aspect of the new Ahsoka series is not necessarily the characters, but where these characters we all know and love are going to take us to another galaxy. In our previous video, we outlined an ambitious theory that Dave Filoni is going to attempt to break off from the direction of the sequels by setting up his own storyline in a new Star Wars galaxy, the one we're introduced to in Ahsoka. This is also why we don't hear about Ahsoka too much when Luke is building his own new Jedi Order or when the sequel trilogies occur. Yes, some of you have pointed out that Rey hears Ahsoka through the Force, meaning that Ahsoka has joined the Cosmic Force, but who knows, maybe that's just a collect call. As a matter of fact, if I know Filoni well enough, he's probably going to change the rules of the Force slightly in this new galaxy we're about to visit. The one thing I didn't really talk about in our last video is just how difficult it is to travel in between galaxies. It's a cold, dark space, and distances are vast. I think this is going to be one of the major challenges that keeps anyone who goes to this new galaxy from coming back, which is why you're going to have this separate Filoni storyline. So we're going to be drawing from a collection of canon lore and Legends lore in this video to explain how intergalactic travel works. I always bring in Legends lore when I'm discussing these more kind of nuanced topics, simply because there's a lot more information in Legends lore, and a lot of this Legends lore is being recycled and turned into canon by new Star Wars writers. And, you know, Dave Filoni is famous for doing this. He's actually the one who brought Thrawn back, and he also almost brought back the extragalactic invaders known as the Yuzang Vong in the Clone Wars. We'll be talking about them a little bit later. There's really no knowing how much Legends material Dave Filoni is going to bring back when he's building this entirely new galaxy. One can expect it's not all going to just be new stuff, because it's Dave Filoni. So the Star Wars galaxy is what you would call an engineered galaxy. Remember the Overlords or Force Gods on Mortis from the Clone Wars? Well, they're a part of a bigger race called the Celestials. Not only did they have an extremely intimate understanding of the Force, they far surpassed both the Jedi and the Sith. In Legends, the Celestials also had technology and the knowledge to build gigantic machines like Center Point Station. This is essentially a hyperspace tractor beam. Tractor beams generate artificial gravity that can halt the momentum of moving ships and draw them towards the machine. Oftentimes these machines are located on larger capital ships and law enforcement vessels. But large constructs like Center Point Station can move a lot more than just a small ship. They can move entire planets, stars, even black holes. This makes them, in my opinion, even more powerful than the Death Star, and equally as devastating as Star Killer Base. The Celestials have said to have molded the galaxy to their liking. The Corellian planetary system where Center Point Station is located is actually a handcrafted planetary system with planets from all different parts of the galaxy placed into one orbit. That's why there's so many garden planets inside of the Corellian system. Now, one other thing the Celestials were known for creating was known as the Galactic Barrier. In canon, the Galactic Barrier exists between the greater galaxy and the unknown region. That is the chaotic area where the Chiss are from, and that's also where Emperor Palpatine goes into hiding on Exegol after his fall. It's rumored that the Celestials created this barrier as a defensive measure to halt the advance of the Rakatan Infinite Empire. They were an extremely savage and barbaric, dark side-aligned Xeno race. The Galactic Barrier did its job, and it kept the Rakatan Empire from spreading out into the unknown region, and the Celestials were able to achieve this by moving a bunch of stars, black holes, and gravitational anomalies in dense clusters and essentially building a wall. And that wall still exists by the time the Empire rises. Now, most hyperspace travel requires massive amounts of calculations, usually done by an astromech. They have to take into account the numerous celestial bodies in the area and all of their pathways. A good astromech or nav computer might be able to store a few dozen routes. The unknown region space was so dense that gravitational anomalies could bump into one another, causing a cascade of other collisions, which makes calculating a way through almost impossible. To get to the planet of Exegol, for instance, Kylo Ren had to use a Sith Wayfinder. These were hyperspatial lodestones that used the Force to direct pilots in the right direction through the shifting unknown region. The other way of getting through the unknown region is just by using the good old-fashioned Force and kind of perceiving your way through jump by jump. This probably takes a lot longer. But during the Old Republic era, an entire section of the Jedi Order, the Explorer Corps, was dedicated to mapping out safe hyperspace lanes using Jedi as pathfinders through the stars. Without them, the Republic would have never expanded out towards the Outer Rim. Now, the Chiss also had their own version of pathfinders, and they called them Skywalkers. It's a Kind of a cool name, right? Now, these Skywalkers weren't like Jedi exactly, as their powers were a bit more muted, and usually these powers faded by the time they became adults. But these individuals could use the Force to navigate their ship safely through all of those gravitational anomalies, and this was one of the big hidden secrets of the Chiss that they didn't really want anyone else to know. These Skywalkers were considered an extremely important military asset. So why am I telling you about this barrier around the unknown region? Well, in Legends, this barrier doesn't just exist around the unknown region, it actually circumvents the entire galaxy, making it exceptionally hard to basically leave the galaxy or come into the galaxy. In Legends lore, it's said that the Celestials also did this to protect the Star Wars galaxy from outside invaders, like the Yuuzhan Vong. And so, if Filoni actually makes this canon, which I think is possible, Ahsoka and Morgan Elsbeth will have to figure out a way to navigate through the hyperspace anomalies, either using the Force, or some Night Sister magic, or perhaps that ancient map we see Ahsoka Tano retrieve from that Night Sister temple that Sabian Wren would later crack open. From the diagram inside the map, it seems to indicate that there is one thin line or path that can get you to this new galaxy. We just don't know if it's some teleportation kind of thing, or if it's a clear line through hyperspace. We do know that according to the map, this path starts on the planet of Ceto, so maybe there is an opening in the Galactic Barrier there, or some type of, warp tunnel or some other thing like that. Judging by this massive construct that Morgan Elsbeth is building using hyperdrive cores from a super Star Destroyer, I imagine they will need to use hyperspace travel and not just teleportation. This poses a new set of challenges, though. There have only been a few documented cases of people actually attempting to leave the Star Wars galaxy, or anyone trying to approach the Star Wars galaxy from another galaxy. Although, before we get there, it should be mentioned that Kamino, which is at the end of the Rishi Maze, is also considered outside the known galaxy, but that's more of an anomaly than anything else. Now, the two cases of extragalactic travel are, interestingly, both related to Thrawn somewhat. One is detailed in my favorite EU novel, Outbound Flight, which is now partially canonized. Just a few years before the Clone Wars started, a Jedi expedition, led by the charismatic Jedi Master George Trebaoth, set out from Republic space. Their goal was to fly around the unknown region in order to test the systems and eventually penetrate the Galactic Barrier and travel to another galaxy. The outbound flight vessel actually was a jury-rigged ship that consisted of 6 Dreadnought-class heavy cruisers. These ships were known for their durability, and they would be arranged in a circle around a central storage core. Now, this ship had around 50,000 colonists on board and enough food to last around 10 years. This should give you guys an idea of just how long it will take to travel in between galaxies. Maybe that's just enough time for Ahsoka Tano to train Sabine Wren into a proper Jedi. Now, Outbound Flight never made it to the Outer Rim thanks to Darth Sidious's plan to murder everyone on board, and also a random encounter between the Jedi and a young Chiss Expeditionary Force officer named Thrawn. At the end of the day, no one was more creative at killing Jedi than Sidious. It also should be noted that Outbound Flight's original goal was to journey to another galaxy, deposit some colonists, and then return back and report what they saw. So at least the Jedi had this idea that they were going to be able to make it back. So in Star Wars history, only the Legends Yuuzhan Vong managed to journey to the Star Wars galaxy from another galaxy. Apparently it took them more than 1,000 years, and that was because they weren't able to travel at faster than light speed, which I imagine was just horrifying for them. We're talking about multiple generations born in the black of space. And this has a lot to do with their propulsion technology known as the Dovin Basel. The way Dovin Basels worked was they would latch onto the gravity signatures of planets and stars in the area in order to propel themselves forward. But in deep space, in the space in between galaxy, there are no reference points, and so the Yuuzhan Vong had to move at extremely slow speeds. The Yuuzhan Vong, of course, were desperate to do this. Their own galaxy was basically dying because of an AI war that they, happened to win, but they also destroyed all of the habitable planets in the process. And so, yeah, this is like a last resort kind of thing to do, because essentially the Yuuzhan Vong were just slowly dying in space. Each generation got smaller and smaller. Now, in Star Wars, a pilot in a ship with a Class 1 hyperdrive, like the one found on the Millennium Falcon, can make it across the entire galaxy in around a day. Granted, the hyperspace lanes are cleared and there aren't any secondary jumps that need to be made. The Star Wars galaxy is around 120,000 light years in diameter, which means a ship equipped with a Class 1 hyperdrive can cover a vast distance in just a week. Our Milky Way galaxy is just a little smaller than the Star Wars galaxy, and the closest nearby dwarf galaxy is around 25,000 light years away. And the nearest major galaxy, Andromeda, is about 2.5 million light years away, which means it would take at least a few weeks with a Class 1 hyperdrive to travel there. Now, we have no idea how far this galaxy where Thrawn is trapped is. We do know, however, that space whales are able to fly there using their own organic technology, so it can't be that far, I'm guessing. What's more, if you take a look at Morgan Elsbeth's construction here, her ship looks like a gigantic version of a hyperspace ring. During the Clone Wars, the Republic fielded several starfighters that were too small or cheap to have an internal hyperdrive, and so instead they used hyperspace rings that could be deployed from the bow of a Venator-class Star Destroyer. As we mentioned before, the hyperdrive cores that they're using on this massive ring ship comes from the Super Star Destroyer. This is a 19-kilometer long ship, so it's geared for some really heavy and long distance lifting, especially when you consider that Morgan Elsbeth's ship has 3 of these hyperdrive clusters. And apparently this ship is called the Eye of Sion, which might be kind of homage to a Sith Lord known as Darth Sion. Now, Darth Sion is kind of a legendary Sith. He concentrated on hatred and anger so much that he was able to use the dark side to revive himself from death upon being struck down. His eye was also famously disfigured. Perhaps this indicates that Morgan Elsbeth's ship is going to require a huge sum of dark side force energy in order to move. I also think Elsbeth will have to use that Night Sister orb artifact that Ahsoka took from the temple on Arcana in order to direct the ship. My feeling is that this map will be powered by the Force in the same way the Jedi and Sith Wayfinders are. And judging by the design and size of the ship, I can say for sure that this journey will be extremely difficult and it'll probably be long and arduous. It's possible that this is a one-of-a-kind ship designed for extragalactic travel. There's a reason why Morgan Elsbeth is risking going to essentially a Republic shipyard to steal equipment to build this ship. She could have easily used any other hyperdrive-equipped ship if it were that easy to travel to another galaxy. Which means that Ahsoka's trusty T6 might not be able to make this journey by itself, which is why I believe in the next episode, she'll probably have to stow away somehow. Journeys like this, in between galaxies, can be extremely terrifying, and that's because there's really nothing out there. No energy sources, no planets to land on. If anything breaks, you're pretty much stuck, and you'll probably die a cold and hard death. The Yu Zhang Vong traveled in great organic world ships in gigantic fleet formations so that they could support each other, but even then the going was extremely hard. If the journey is long enough, I wouldn't even be surprised if spacers would begin to get consumed by madness or other mental illnesses. We know that in Star Wars lore, there is something called hyperspace sickness, which occurs when you look out into hyperspace for too long. This is why most ships, when they're journeying through hyperspace, they actually have blast shields over the windows so that people don't lose their minds completely. Also, I wouldn't be surprised if Filoni also created some, horrifying space creatures for our hero or villains to fight. After all, that is how Thrawn first got to that galaxy in the first place. It was freaking space whales. So there you have it, guys. That's all I really know about extragalactic travel in the Star Wars universe. I really hope Dave Filoni does a good job with this, because this is obviously my favorite part of the Ahsoka series so far. I'm really interested in the unknown, and I hope Dave Filoni brings out all the horror of deep space travel, because it is a very scary thing to do. Let me know in the comment section below what you guys think is going to happen. I mean, maybe this journey will take multiple episodes. Maybe it'll take the entire first season. Most likely not, but yeah, let me know. Also, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome content. As usual, my name is Alan, reminding you that my allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy,